Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abasi. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Let me make sure I'm not run over here. We are in a market in Falomohe in Ikoyi, and the theme for today, of course, we're talking about energy and food prices. So first on, had an exclusive sit-down with the president of the African Development Bank, Akiume Additional. He spoke with Rolake Akinkube, who of course hosts the awesome Business Week, which our viewers can catch every Saturday at 10 a.m. right here on the Arise News channel, that recaps everything that's gone on in the business world during that particular week. Here is a sit-down, a snippet, just a little teaser of a full 1 hour plus conversation that we had. Here he is talking about the importance of agriculture to Nigeria's economy.
When I was minister here, what I pushed for, which was very successful, was that agriculture is not a way of life. Agriculture is a business. Because 70% of the population live in the rural areas. So if you're ever going to change their lives and trajectories of themselves, their kids, good housing, health, and everything else, you've got to make agriculture a very, very wealthy sector. That way they can get jobs, they can do many things. And that's what I did as Minister of Agriculture, and it worked. But when I got to the African Development Bank, the first thing I had to let central bank governors and ministers of finance understand is that, you know, it's something where you got inflation. And of course, we all know that in macroeconomics, it's pretty straightforward in terms of tightening money supply, and you raise interest rate and make people save more money and all that. Yes. But the fact is that in many African countries, majority of African countries, is that if you look at the consumer price index, 65% to 70% or 75% of that is the price of food.
Yes.
And so if I am trying to manage it from just the monetary policy side, you can't succeed. You therefore have to have a structural approach to that. So I am very big on making sure you can drive the price of food down. So that's why at the African Development Bank, when I became president, I put top priority on food and agriculture. And we are investing over a 10-year period, $25 billion into agriculture. And let me tell you some of the things that are really working with regard to that. First is, in agriculture is, you have to have high-performing technologies to raise the yields of farmers so can produce more and make more money and lower the cost of production. So I set up something with my approval of our board called Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation. And it is, I'm not going to go into all the details, but basically what it does is that taking high-performing technologies and putting it in the hands of farmers, not hundreds, millions and millions of farmers. Because for me, I always tell my staff, I don't do Mickey Mouse stuff. You know, if you're going to solve a problem, solve it at scale of tens and hundreds.
Are we talking smallholder farmers?
Smallholder farmers, medium-scale farmers, but largely 80% of them are smallholder farmers. You know, and so what we did was, I'll give you an example. In the last 5 years, that platform has delivered high-yielding technologies for 13 million farmers across many African countries. I'll give you an example from Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, we supported them to have access to heat-tolerant wheat varieties. You know, wheat is a temperate crop. But in the context of climate change, you are able to get technologies that can grow in a tropical environment very well for wheat. Well, I was talking to the Prime Minister, and we're encouraging Prime Minister Abiy of Ethiopia. So in 2018, they started with 5,000 hectares. You know how much they grew this year of those varieties? 2.1 million hectares. Ethiopia became self-sufficient in wheat in 3 years. This year, Ethiopia became a net exporter of wheat. And so I am convinced that since Africa has 65% of all the arable land left uncultivated in the world, that's going to be the source of wealth for us.
All right, now that's on the food side, and I'm going to link this next topic to that. You're going to get the full interview tomorrow on the morning show, and of course across all our other shows, that exclusive interview with the president of the African Development Bank, Akiume Additional. Another matter, and you folks know how much I stressed power when I talked about Dangote Cement spending 400 billion naira on fuel and power in 2023. The National Assembly yesterday, we got this footage from our correspondents in Abuja, had a blackout a blackout that stopped activity at the National Assembly for a number of minutes. They were fanning themselves, there was no power. Again, this is coming 24 hours after Transcorp Power PLC listed on the NGX, just to remind us in this country how important power is to production in this country. The administration wants to get us to $1 trillion by 2030. There is no economy on this planet with GDP of $1 trillion or more that has power issues. You have to have constant power in order to move forward. Let's link that to food. I want to speak to a gentleman here who has a stall. His name is Odion, and he's got a stall that he runs here as a business guy. I want to talk to him about how power links food. Odion, good morning to you. Come closer. I want to ask you about frozen food, right? How much is a kilo of frozen chicken right now?
Frozen chicken right now, currently today at the market, a kilo is 6,500.
It used to be 2,000. It used to be 1,500.
Okay, let me take you to a journey now of a business. When them at early last 2 years, it was kind of okay, a little bit. But currently, right now, the market is working right now.
What about turkey?
You can't always say about the turkey. The current price of turkey right now is 6,500. The chicken, we don't go to a frozen store right now because it's too expensive, and there we don't buy anymore because if you buy, you can't sell it. You can buy, okay, you're buying a kilo of 6,500 now. How do you expect me to sell for you? Should I sell for 9,000 now for just 3 pieces for 1 kilo and 3 pieces of a turkey? How many do you want to eat?
I want to link this to power. How does Nigeria's current electricity situation impact people who are selling frozen foods?
It's not even impacting at all. It's so dull and bad. Last week, I lost about half a carton because of the light.
You lost?
Yes, a big loss, half a carton. That I have to just, I bought a turkey of 68,000. Yeah. So I'm losing an half because there's no light, one, and I buy a fuel of 7,000 naira every day.
Yeah, we have to watch your language. We're on live TV.
Yes.
I know you're frustrated, but be easy with the language.
The hunger is it, yes. So I'll buy a fuel of 7,000 naira every day to power my gen, and it's not powering the gen the way I want it. And I'll be buying the fuel, consuming my money. There's no profit on it. So that's just it.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Odion, thank you so much for talking to us. Apologies for the colorful language. People are a bit angry out here, and I hope, yeah. So look, real quick, I want to show you some statistics from the Bureau on the MBS. With respect to the third quarter of 2023, with respect to Nigeria's electricity data. Just to take a look at this as I wrap up with these figures here. If you look at the third quarter, you will see that Nigeria has a total of 11.7 million customers. Think about this. You have 200 million people and only 11.7 million of them are electricity customers. That is literally 5% of the population. If you use the MPC, the Population Commission's numbers, as of 2019, they say Lagos is 12 million people, Kano is 14 million. You can argue and say it's 2025, but those are the official numbers on the MPC. That is literally the entire just one state is your electricity customers across the country. Now, look at the numbers further. Look at metered customers, 6.5 million. That is 2.28% of the entire population. That is to say only 2% of Nigeria's population can be tracked with respect to the amount of power that they consume. You can see about 6.5 million are estimated billing. So those are Nigerians who are either overpriced or underpriced for power. And then look at the amount of supply, 5,700 gigawatt hours. Don't be fooled by that number. 1,000 megawatt hours gives you a gigawatt hour. But if you annualize that figure of 5,007, you get about 20,000 gigawatt hours for a full year. However, Nigerians self-generate about 14,000 megawatt hours. So that is 70% of your total supply for the full year being Nigerians who self-generates as far as power is concerned. So the key here, Ayo, Rufai, and Doctor, is that power is in my opinion, next to insecurity, our number one issue. It impacts economic output. It adds to insecurity. You can even go biblical with this. According to Judeo-Christian faith, God needed light to create the earth. So, it is incredibly important that the administration sorts out power because it is part of the reason why prices are going up here. You can't store food. You heard the gentleman there. There are so many implications. I'll finish with this. Yesterday, you had the lawmaker from Delta State who wants to have Nigeria Nigerians pay rent on a monthly basis. Do you know why rent goes up in Nigeria in terms of service charges? It's power. So we must fix power. That's our update for today.
Very good point you raised, Rotus. That's to show you what's on the streets now as we speak. Chicken that used to be 1,005. Look at it all of a sudden, 6,000. The level of inflation is insane. And amidst all of this you're saying about power, do you know also that they were talking about the fact that over 1,000 megawatts were rejected by distribution companies? There's a story like that making the rounds also as regards the power situation. And when we ask questions about what happened to the Siemens deal and President Buhari, people say we should stop asking. Because that was, by now, based on that target, we're supposed to get like extra 20,000 meg on that. But we can't see it. So the problem with us is that we cannot implement our plans efficiently. This was the same country that Nigeria started having electricity power in commercial country in the 20s. We built our first power station in the 20s, Ijora. Then we also had the Netco or thereabout in Jos, and we had most of these companies. But we've not been able. In fact, as when Nigeria had power, electricity, some places in Ireland did not have power. But we have stalled on our development potential. And that's why we would like the incumbent president to be able to do something about power. I know you are going to talk about the bottlenecks of tariff. That's a big question. We need to talk about it. So now that we even know that it's about 2 million people we have registered on meters, then who are the downtrodden in society that we subsidize the power for? We would like to ask that question. Because if data shows that we have 2 million people, so how many people are on the subsidy band on the power? Because obviously most of the industries are providing their power themselves. And those people that are paying based on estimated billing, they are another sector. How can we even provide enough meters? So there are many opportunities and power value in this power value chain that we need to look at in the first place. The bulk power buying and all of that. Let's even look at the viability of all of these processes in the first place. Agriculture is another one, and I'm happy. I like to watch that interview tomorrow with Akumi Adesina because he did a stellar job as regards. And by the way, I think he's going to be given an award for Obafemi leadership today. You know, he did a stellar job as regards that. The question we should ask is, when he brought that improved wheat variety to Nigeria, why didn't we adopt it? This same one that they've scaled in Ethiopia. Because we only know that, okay, wheat grows in, in cold regions and things like that. But we have wheat that can do well in our society. But we didn't adopt it. Today we are depending on Ukraine that is fighting their own war to give us wheat. Although the government has been trying to defend it by saying Ukraine just extended, it's not that they went begging and all of that. But the moral of the story is we have 80 million hectares of arable land, but we don't have food sustainability. So these are the things. Also in agriculture, there are many value chains that can bring billions for this country, but we've not explored them. So we keep leaving money on the table. That's the problem of Nigeria. But we can do it. I believe so much in this country, Rotus. But we need to have sensible leaders that think.
All right. Well, Rotus, thank you so much for bringing that report, especially from the streets, and giving us a real sense, even though it was just one person you spoke to. But I believe that we can agree that he speaks the realities of a number of people on ground. The cost of doing business, we've talked about that earlier today, and the focus you then brought on power. And you saying that following, you said, I think the first thing you said, the second thing we must look at is power, because of its impact on the economy and the cost of doing business. Now, the area I'd like to talk about is what some industry players, I was at an energy summit yesterday, and what they talked about was right at the top in terms of leadership. So if we're going to solve the power issue in Nigeria, we have to even first of all talk about who is at the helms of affairs, the Minister of Power. And the complaint, speaking of the record to someone, was that we haven't gotten it right in about 3 successions, and that this has significantly impacted that sector. The fact that we put in square pegs in round holes, the men are distinguished and experienced in their own rights, but not in the power sector. And so what happens is that that for a few months into their job, they are trying to, or years actually, trying to find their way around, feel around to see how they can solve the issues or even manage that sector. And it has taken this sector back many years, in addition to the other issues that we often talked about. So I want to, spotlight the decision as to the appointment as to who leads that Ministry of Power. Because if we're going to get it right, then we need to ensure that we have, I believe the last time we had a round square in a round peg in a round hole was during Professor Bartanaji. And look at what he's done now with the geometric Abia power plant. So we need to get that right. So I just like to focus on that this morning, and hopefully we can sort that issue. Let's not politicize appointments. If we're going to be serious about fixing the power issue we have in Nigeria, let's get appointments right and leadership right.
Okay, Rotus, first, I think it's very engaging the way you continue to put a human face to the serious crisis that we face, in the food sector, the cost of living, and today you have focused on, food and electricity. Let me start with agriculture. I look forward to the interview, the conversation with Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of the AFDB. You will recall that Akinwumi Adesina was one of the superstars of the Jonathan administration, a super technocrat, and he knows his subject, he knows his onions. We don't see such people with such level of technocratic competence around here anymore. And that's part of the problem we face. As Minister of Agriculture, what are some of those things that Akinwumi Adesina used to talk about? He constantly reminded us that agriculture is business. The other phrase that he likes to talk about is how you have to invest in the value chain, and that Nigeria said top priority should be in providing an enabling environment for that value chain. And under his watch, as Minister of Agriculture, many of these manufacturing companies were able to get access to commodities, to seeds, and all that, and many of those factories came to life. It was part of his achievement at that time. Many of those companies, I assume, will be part of those companies that, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is telling us now that they are distressed. Under Akinwumi Adesina as Minister of Agriculture, they called it then Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. That has been changed now to Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Now, he has this concept of the farmer's presidency. He used to call President Jonathan the farmer's president. And there were measures that he introduced to support the farmer. You will recall the e-wallet that he introduced to support credit, access to credit for Nigerian farmers. 3, it was under Akinwumi Adesina as Minister of Agriculture that we had cassava export. Nigeria became a net exporter of cassava. And he also proved it at home here when he was encouraging people along the value chain to produce cassava bread in the same country. Now, people say, well, we have security problems and all that. Even at that time under the Jonathan administration, there were security issues. Boko Haram banditry was a problem, insurgency was a problem, but output was not a problem in the agri sector. I mean, he's in a better position to explain all of this, and he continues to show that distinction even as president of the African Development Bank. And I guess that is why today he will be getting the Obafemi Awolowo Leadership Prize, and he will also deliver a lecture in that regard. So he still has a lot to say. And more importantly, the AFDB, which he heads, is supporting Nigeria with is it about $134 million, to resolve this crisis in terms of food. So that's that about Akinwumi Adesina. The gentleman that you interviewed, yes, he put a human face to it, which is excellent. The point you have made when you were trying to quote the Bible, in the Bible, we said, let there be light. Okay? So you need light to do anything, even for the purpose of creation, even for the purpose of anything. And the loss of electricity, the lack of access to electricity is responsible for many of the problems. That man will probably fall under a micro and small scale, enterprises category. And these are the people, this is the level that is most affected. And it is in part also because of electricity, power, energy, cost of buying diesel. There are many of those companies that the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is saying they are either distressed or they've shut down. Electricity is part of the problem. And we need to address it. It has to be a priority. Kingsley Moghalu is coming later today. He's going to talk, he talked in his paper about this same let there be light, that you can't progress, you can't solve the crisis in which we have found ourselves if you do not give people access to electricity. So those are the, are the things that I see in this matter. And then, by the way, your good friend, Donald Trump, he won as predicted in the Super Tuesday. I know you are following the American election process very closely. But
exactly.
I thought you would talk about Meta, Facebook and Instagram that collapsed for 2 hours yesterday. Yeah. The outage, that everybody has been talking about. With Elon Musk making a joke out of it.
All right.
Thank you, Rotus.
Exactly.